line in graphical terms. If you want, you can be able to change the graph and make it differently. We don't have time to go through everything. I want to go on and get historical data for Apple. If I get historical data for Apple, I'm here and I see what is happening with the Apple. I get data for the last 6 months. I get data in daily basis. I click done and I click at apply. Automatically, here I have a table with all the data for the last 6 months for Apple. I'm at that particular point and I put download the data. Whenever I click download the data, I'm getting a file that is giving me all this data in Excel. I'm going to go again. I need to pay attention to this file. This file is an Excel file with a specific type, the common delimiter Apple data. If I click that particular file, I get the data for the last 6 months for Apple. I go on and I see what is happening with my Apple. I'm going back to my Excel. Sorry, I'm going back to Yahoo. I take Yahoo Finance and I want another stock. Amazon is going down. If I want to see what is happening with Google, if I want to see what is happening with Google, Alphabet is the company. And I want to see for the last 6 months, what do I see? The price goes up or down?
Cool.
The price goes up, both in Apple and Google. And my question is, where do I get more? If I put my money in Apple and if I put my money in Google, what do I gain? If I put my money in Amazon or if I put my money in General Electric, where do I lose more? Yes.
Are you, you're saying from the first day to the 6 month present day right now?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it just depends, honestly, on the percentage that you're gaining. Is it
We're going to check all that stuff.
if you put money?
We're going to check all that stuff and we're going to do our own calculations. You can be able to use the calculations that are made automatically for you.
Good.
And you do your own stuff. Clear? You use your computer, not your cell phone right now. You do not do any calculations with your cell phone. You do calculations only with your computer. I want you to go and take the data for Google for the last 6 months. You see what is the graph, you move around, you click it here, it gives you a dynamic graph for the last 6 months. You can change it. You go back, and I want you to know how to do your stuff. And if you do your stuff, you take historical data. You specify the period for the last 6 months. You specify the frequency. You want daily. You click done, you click apply. You have your data here. You take your data and you put it in an Excel format. That Excel format is automatically, let's go on and see it, in here Apple and Google. These are the two files that I'm looking at. These files are delimiter files, comma delimiter files. That means something important. I cannot save functions, I cannot save formulas, I cannot save graphs in this type of a file. I need to change the nature of the file. If I have a file here that is a file with information as it is, I take that file and I save it as a different type of a file. And the file I will select to include all additional information is workbook, not any other type. If you save it to a different type of a file because you don't pay attention, then you don't get the information that you want to have. Does this happen? Yes, I did it yesterday. I saved all the links that I put in YouTube in a file that was an image. Then Ibrahim says it and says, Professor, you sent it to me, but I cannot go on and make a connection. I was in the system, I saw it, I make a different change. I put them in a Word format in such a way that Ibrahim will go on, click it, and have the image automatically and have the file. I send it to all, Ibrahim tested it. He said, good, now it's working, right? So what do we want? We want the file to be as an Excel workbook. Why? Because we need to do work. What kind of work? We need to save it in such a way that we can see it as a work file. I want to see what is happening here. And I want to put one file next to the other. This is Apple. Do you see the difference? Don't be united. Do you see the difference? One is workbook, the other is comma delimiter file. They look different. They have different amount of space. You can be able to do different type of work. Previously, we talked about AT&T. Two different files. One allows you to have formulas and graphs and everything else so you can do your work. The other has only data. What do I want to do? I want to compare Apple and I want to compare Google. I click my Google. I change the format for Google with Save As. I put it in a desktop and I change the format to workbook. I have it as workbook. What do I have? I have different files. I have Google and I have Apple. I have Google and I have Apple. Do you see it? These two are of the same type. That's workbook. These two are also of the same type. That's a delimiter. What do I want to do? I want to take the data from here and I want to take the data from here and I want these two data to put in the same file so I will be able to make something I didn't do the previous hour. I want to compare what is happening with Google and what is happening with Apple. Therefore, I create a new file. That new file is a workbook file. In that particular file, I want to put information.
The phone is running out of battery. Do you have your code?
No, I don't have it code with me, but I have in my office. I have it in my bag. Yeah. So what do I need to do is I need to take this information. What do I need to do first? I take everything that is dollars. Everything that is dollars, I'll format it as a dollar. And I know that these are high prices. This part here is all this data that I have here are Google data. I take it, I copy it, I go on here and I paste it. These are my Google data. I don't want to work only with Google. I want to work with Google and Apple together. I save the differences. And then I go to my Apple data. I want to take all the prices and put them in dollars. And I want to take everything that I have from here and copy it and paste it here in such a way that I will have the two things together. I'm out of this file, I keep this saved, and I have the Google and the Apple. I insert one line so I can have here my Google, and I will have the other as my Apple. I go on and I see what is happening with both cases, my Google and my Apple. I have different information. I eliminate one part. This is my volume. The volume needs to be formatted. Similarly, but not in dollars, I will put it in with commas, not decimal points. I will take here what is Apple. I will delete the adjusted part. I will take my volume and I will put here the formatted of this case. In this part, I have two stocks that I can compare them, one and the other. Before I go further, what do I need to do? Do I start from the same date or not? Do I finish on the same date? Then I have the correct time period to be analyzed.
So we are comparing Google with Apple or
Yes.
Apple with Amazon? Oh.
Why I compare Google with Apple? Because both of them are increasing.
Yeah.
I would like you to do both two stocks that are declining. And I would like you to do one stock that increases and the other that declines. Because there are different questions. Technically speaking, you do the same type of analysis. That if you have two stocks that both are increasing, you want to find out the one that increases the most. If you have two stocks that both are declining, you want to find out the one that decreases the least. And if you have two stocks that one is increasing and the other is decreasing, you want to find out a stock that if you lose from one and if you gain from the other, you will see what is actually happening. Are we on the same page? Okay, put it in and focus it. So there are all possible options. What do I want to do? From here, I would like to make candlestick graphs. I did it last hour. We videotaped it, it's gonna be in YouTube. What we did not do last hour that we're gonna do today is we're gonna focus on two important points. What is happening with the closing prices? And I would like to see what's happening with the trade. Which one trades the most? The volume for Google and the volume for Apple are how these two related? Yes.
Apple seems to be trading a lot more than Google.
Correct.
A lot.
And if you want to take one next to the other, if you want to see how one is next to the other, you can be able to go and graph them. Because you don't want to bother with the too many numbers. You want to go on and see how you will graph them, one next to the other. You take it and you make a graph, and you see what is happening. Apple is the blue, orange is Google. What do you say? He said it before he even saw the graph. What did you say? Apple trades much more than Google, but also Apple fluctuates more the trade than Google's fluctuation. And I want you to do few tricks here that are important. If you want to see how these two things are compared, I would like to make a better graph. So I don't like this graph. I would like here to insert also the date. So I will be very specific when I'm talking about. Before, I didn't have a date, I have numbers. Then I will graph all that information, including the titles. And I will see what is happening with my two graphs. My analysis here is I will compare the volume. I will take this graph and I will cut it from here, and I will go and put my graph here. What kind of a graph is here? I made that mistake yesterday. I copy an image. Ibrahim went and he wanted to make changes, to make links. He couldn't be able to do it. What do I want you to do? I want you to paste not an image, but something else. What is the difference between these two graphs? They look alike. You click this one and you can make changes. You click this one and you cannot make changes. I want you to know how to work with your information. In this particular sheet, you have the graph. In this particular sheet, you have your data, and you can do your analysis. You specify it and you click for that part. This can increase or decrease, but you cannot do anything with this graph. That's an image. I don't want an image. This one is a graph that you can take it. Not only you can increase it, but you can be able to do things in this graph. So what do I want you to do? First thing I want you to do, I want you to put some professional color, and as such, I want either light blue or light gray. then I want you to make a comparison. One way you can make a comparison is if you can take something that is large or small, click it, and go on and format this data in such a way that you can make it a secondary axis. And making a secondary axis means that you adjust your data based upon your size. And now you can say something that before you couldn't say. And before, what did I say? I said that we don't have much of fluctuation with Google trade, right? But that was not a correct statement. We have as much fluctuation, and more or less at the same period that we have with Apple. Why is that now visible? Because I have here one scale, and I have here another scale. Here I see how many stocks I have traded for Apple. Here I see how many stocks I've traded with Google. What do I see? Is that heavy trade, more or less, is at the same period. Is this clear? I want you to be able to do it. How do I want you to be able to do it? By doing exactly the same thing, as long as you look at prices. So what do I want you to do now? I want you to take the date. And I want you to take Google's closing price. And I want you to take Apple's closing price. And I want this to be the close price for Google and Apple. Here is what I have for Google, and here is what I have for Apple. I double check to see this is correct. This is what I get from Google. This is what I get from Apple. It's correct. And since it's correct, I go on and I focus on what I'm interested in. I take that information and I look at for the entire 6 months period. And as I have it, I want to graph and see what is happening with the closing price of Google and Apple. I have the graph, I take the graph, and I cut it from here. I'll put it in where I have my graphs. I'll put it down here. What do I need to pay attention? How do I paste it? Not as an image, but as the data that I have. I take the graph here now, and I'm going to look at it large. And as I have it here, I can put the same colors that I put before. And I want to compare these two stocks. High value, low value. I want to take whatever I had before, because I want to be on the same pace. I have in one side Google, on the other side Apple. The same thing I'm going to do here. I'll take Apple and I will put it in my secondary axis. And now I can see how these two things are moving at the same time. Do you have it? Kelsey, can you check to see if everybody follows me or not? Finance is an exercise that you learn it only if you do it, never if you look at it. If you can't do it, and you look at it, doesn't matter how many times you look at that stuff. You need to know how to make the graphs. And we can be moving fast, so you don't have much time. So what do you see in this graph? Ibrahim, do you like the graph? This one, the one that you see. No, I don't. And the reason that I don't like this graph is because both graphs start with price from 0. And as they start from price from 0, all of this area here is waste for nothing. And I don't want you to waste area for nothing. I want you to be able to spread out your information in such a way you see exactly what is happening. You look at this scale, starts from 0. You go on and you see what is happening with the lowest point. Instead of starting from 0, can you start this axis from 1000? If you take this, you take the axis and you format the axis. You don't start it from 0, you start it from 1000. Then the graph is different. What do you see now? Which one is better? And Excel now allows you to go back and forth. Is better to have this picture, or it is better to have this picture? Why? Because it gives you a clear feeling of what is happening. And if I make the adjustment for Google, I would like to make the same adjustment for Apple. What do I need to do? I need to go to the other axis and make the adjustment from here. Don't want to start from 0. I can start from something up to here. I can start from
150.
180. No, because I'm losing information. I can bring it up. 160. If I have it like this, then I have two different pieces of information in two different scales. And I can be able to say they move up the same way or not. Do they move up the same way?
Yes.
Therefore, if you put your money in one or the other, you would like to make a comparison, how things are moving. I keep it as it is. I increase the size of my information here, and I want to make some changes. What do I want to see? Do you know anything that is called thread line?
Yes.
I click it and I add it. And I have a line here. That line has an equation, and that line has a quality. I put that information here. And this is what is for Google. I can take that for Apple. I do it. I put an equation and I put a line. And this is for Apple. If I want to make a distinction and I want to see it, I would like, first of all, to increase its size. So it's going to be visible. And if I have it as it is, I like to ask someone to tell me what is the difference between these two lines. One line is blue, one line is blue, and I can take that particular line that is blue. Yeah?
Oh, one of the lines, well, first of all, both lines are starting at different points, and
Correct.
they're both increasing at different rates.
Correct. And I would like to make them thick. So they can be visible, and I can take the other one and make them also thick so they can be visible, and I want to see what is happening with these two lines. What is the meaning of an equation is my first question. All of you took algebra before you came here.
Yes.
That means all of you know what is the meaning of an equation. Take that part, and now I can write. In algebra, you learn that y is equal a, b, x, plus or minus here. And I want to know to this line here, what is the x, a, and what is the b in the line here? What is the a and what is the b? You said yes, right? If it's yes, then I want you to tell me what is the a, the intercept.
What was the question?
This is your intercept. This is your intercept.
This is slope.
And then the other part is the slope. That is b, the slope.
Y equals
What do you have? Both slopes are positive. Which one is steeper?
It's what?
Which one is a steeper slope? The
apple.
blue or the other?
Orange, apple.
So the one is steeper. You do not look at the graph because you change the scale. You look at the number. And what you say here, you have different than that as a slope. Can you compare them? How many times one slope is steeper than the other? Valeria. Can you compare them? What do you need to make comparing? She says 4 times. She is right. How do we do it? If one is this one and the other
Professor, can you just move down this level?
is this one, and correctly Kani says put these things further down, and these are the numbers that you have, then my question is, Kaniz, what kind of numbers are those? Are dollars, are absolute numbers, are percentages? What numbers are those? What are your axes? The vertical axis is what?
Money.
The vertical axis are money. You have them as money. And you want to see how many times one is larger from the other. And this is money or not?
No, it's just.
Correct. This is not money. This is a general part. You don't need this part. What do you need? You need to know what is the difference between their slopes. So, roughly speaking, what can you say about the slope? Roughly speaking, what can you say about the slope?
Positive slope.
Different increase.
if you have one or the other. My financial question is which price is increasing faster than the other and by how much? Valeria said how much. She said one is increasing a little bit less than 3 times than the other.
Yeah, Apple's increasing by, I think,
So what is happening?
2 times more than the other.
This price is increasing about 4 times faster than the other. How do I want to do it? I go on and I control what is happening with that number here. If this number is with no decimal points, because the decimal point is very close to 0.1, I will say that one price goes up faster 3 times than the other. Is this clear?
Yes.
But 3 times is how much money? Is my question. And this is what you can be able to have in this case. What a linear trend tells you. A linear trend tells you that approximately, the change is proportional throughout all the period. Is the change proportional throughout all the period? No, because it goes up and down. And you have things that are increasing much faster than the other. As a result, I can be able to do another trend. I can click at my data here, and I can add another type of a trend. I can click at my data here, and I can add another type of a trend. I can add a moving average. And I have a selection of different moving averages. And I want to see, okay, if I want to consider for months, and I will take 30 points, and for every 30 points, I want to see what is happening. And this is going to be my moving average for Google. Every 30 days, what is happening? Moving average for Google. I will go up to Apple. I'll click data for Apple. I'll add the trend line. I'll select moving average. I will go and I will put moving average for 30 days. Why 30 days? Because it tells me what is happening with a monthly period. Your data for 6 months, you see what's happening month after month. What is better to have? Google or Apple? And what is happening in that case? You see that these two stocks have different values, correct? What I want to do is I want to compare them on a same base. I want to go here and compare them on the same base. Comparing on the same base means what? I will take the two prices. And as I will take the two prices, I will see what is the difference of going from May 20th to May 21st. And if I want to see from May 20th to May 21st, I will go and see from May 21st how much change is from May 20th. And that's an increase of $10. The other one, Apple, increases by $3.50. Which one is more? Which one is more? Do I know it or not? Yes.
You're asking, so obviously like $10 is more than $3, but what you want to know is the percentage of how much it increases, right?
Correct.
And
this is what I want to do now. If I want to see the percentage increase, I will go here and I'll put a percentage increase. How do I get the percentage? The difference from one day to the other
And then you
relative to what was on the previous period. And the percentage here is this much.
How do you find again? I'm sorry.
I will do for the other part. How do I find this one?
the difference between the two divided by.
How do I find this one? This one is when I divide the difference. This is when I divide the difference with the previous day price. I divide the difference with the price of the previous day. And I found out what is the percentage. If I find the percentage in 1, I can find the percentage for all. And I can make a clear statement. Where do I get more money? When I have Apple or when I have Google? When I have Apple. Because when I have Apple, I get almost 2%, and when I get Google, I get a little bit less than 1%.
So, good question.
Yes?
So if we were doing the 6 month, like as we were,
Yes?
we would do the opening. Well, would it be the opening divided by the close, or would it be the
No.
close by the close?
Either we keep closed or open. We keep
Okay.
exactly the same. Here, for example, I keep everything as a closed price. I do analysis on a closed price. That's the most common part to do. Now, is anything different than all the other periods? What did I do so far? I found out the differences. And I found out the percent changes. Is anything else I need to do? No, I take these two and I take them all the way to the end of the period. And as I take them all the way to the end of the period, I can be able to graph. Now I can graph the changes. And if I graph the changes, I see how much I have as changes from one period to the other. I take it, I cut it from here, and I bring it down. I paste it. I take the graph. I take it large. I take this axis. I move it down. So I will have clear information here, and I see what is happening with the changes as a percentage from one and the other stock. What do I want? I want my graphs to be professional, meaning my graphs to have color. What else I want? I want the graphs to be clear, to identify what is happening. If the stock does not change at all, which means if I insert one line at the 0 axis, and I make that to be large, that means I cut my area into when the graphs are moving up, or when the graph is moving down, when my price increases and my price declines. And what do I see? What do I see? I see that Google has the highest percent change and the highest decline at different points of time. And I see when these two things move up and down. Can I see them both? Can I see them both? Here I see them in time period. Can I see them both? I take these two parts, Google and Apple, as a percent change, and I can make another graph. That graph is X and Y scatter plot graph. Google is the first, Apple is the second. The first is the horizontal, the other is the vertical. What do I see? I put the right title here. For the case, I take the title, I take that graph, and I cut it from here and I put it here. I present the same information in different terms. I want this to be symmetrical. I want this graph to go from here and to be on the side. I want this part to get out of here and go to the bottom. I want to graph everything for, one is from 6% to -6, the other is from 6 to 12. I have one point. That point says that one stock at one day for one increases by 10% and for the other increases by less than 1%, by 0.32. Always the first column is the horizontal axis, the second column is the vertical axis. And I want to see now what is happening here. How two things are moving together. If I insert to this data, if I insert in this data here a thread line, that particular thread line gives me something else that I want those of you who took statistics to give me a validation of that particular information. And if you got statistics and you have really good grade in statistics, I want to know what this line means and what is this graph. Otherwise, on Wednesday we're going to talk about it. So what do I have here? How one stock changes together with the other stock. And if the two stocks move in the same direction, the line is positive. If the two stocks move on an opposite direction, the line is negative. And already you have information. Apple and Google move in the same direction. Apple and Amazon move in the same direction or in the opposite direction. I want you to do the same thing for Apple and Amazon and see what is happening there at that time. What else? I need to put colors in my graph so I can use them and see how I will give interpretation to this gauge. What do I have here? I have two stocks together. I have Google and I have Apple. And I need to send these things to you, so we'll have all that information. What do I need to do? I need to go to Google. I need to get into my class account. Today is November 18. what do I need? I need to take all these files and all the other files from here and all these files from here. Do I have anything else? Yes, I got 2 more files. Then I'll send them to you. And next Wednesday we move on, and I want you to see how you would be able to do that stuff. View the videos from the class.
So as a homework, we have to find the difference between two socks, right?
No, I already told you what I want you to do. We did Apple and Google. If you do Apple and Amazon, what do you see? If you do Google and Amazon, what do you see?
Oh, okay. Good question.